Ladies and gentlemen, so today was the release of Symbiote difficulty in Marvel Contest of Champions, and I was taking this on straight out of the gate on live stream earlier. I was expecting kind of like a 4 to 5 hour live stream, and to die a lot, man. You know, this is a difficulty that's pegged to be higher than Epic, but it turns out it's actually really straightforward and very easy to do, arguably, if you have the right buffs and the right knowledge, and you are using the buffs and the symbiote to kind of its best potential. And in today's video, we're going to tell you what buffs to use and when, and how to kind of, you know, use certain buffs to maximize them, and everything you need to know to have a very easy and clean run in symbiote, and hopefully have no deaths, because I died, I think it was like 5 times total, but they were all very stupid deaths. They were absolutely ridiculous deaths that all could have been avoided just by, you know, not using a certain buff, because a lot of this stuff is kind of using the symbiote buffs, or 20 of them. Well, not all 20 of them, more like a good kind of like 6 or 7 to play cleverly around a lot of the mechanics that you will face in this. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. But anyway, I'm just going to kind of give you the general overview. In comparison to Epic and the previous difficulties, there are going to be 5 different bosses. So you got Spider-Man, a Vision, you also have a Kang, a Deadpool, and a Void, and finally it's the Symbiote Supreme as the final boss as well. So what do you need before ideally taking on this? So you need to have taken up your summoned symbiote to rank 5, and that's a very important place to start, because if we go into the quest, you're going to see a global node in this, which increases the damage output of the summoned symbiote by 200%. So just absolutely stacks out the character and makes him by far the best choice for it. You don't really want to worry about any rank 5 champions you have, because I have you know, like Blade, Stark, Spidey, Domino, it's Summoned Symbiote all of the way. And before you go in, ideally you want to make sure, if you're going for 100%, you have approximately about 400 Clintar strands for the buffs. You're going to need about that for the run, but it depends on your device and loading times, etc. Could be a factor that causes you to need more overall. So just, you know, if you are going for 100%, ideally make sure you have 400. You might do it quite quickly and end up only using somewhere in the region of 250 and 300, and from going in straight away blind and maybe misusing a few buffs here and there, I used about 350 myself. So just to give you an idea of the amount of strands, ideally aim for 400 plus, but yes, you can take it, you know, chapter by chapter if you'd like to as well. That's potentially a way to do it if you are a little bit lacking on them. Yeah, you got to make sure you have the rank 5 symbiote, so symbiote all the way. And ideally, the best supporting team, to the best of my knowledge at the moment, is going to be the X-Men team, just because this is just a crazy support team for stats. You have increased crit, which is increased chance to bleed, increased crit damage, increased critical bleed, which we'll talk about in a second, and also a bit more attack as well. So the X-Men team synergy of Magneto, Cyclops, Storm, Wolverine works so well for me, just allowed my symbiote, summoned symbiote to be powered up and just absolutely cut for everyone, so I'd highly recommend that. So there are kind of like 2 different categories of buffs as well. So there are buffs to have active 24/7, and I've kind of written this in a little bit of a Google document as well, which I will paste below, which I'm reading from at the moment. So the 2 buffs to have active 24/7 are Cut Deep and Total Carnage. So just to show you kind of these buffs on the interface and exactly how they are performing. So Cut Deep is this one here, and it lasts for 20 minutes. So this one has kind of 2 really big benefits, and the first one is that your parry is going to be double duration, which means you can get 8 easy or 9 if you're pushing like guaranteed combo hits on a parry. So that means, you know, throwing out like a medium, light, medium, and then going in for another 5 combo. But also, as well as that, you are going to double the duration of your bleeds as well, and your bleeds are where you're getting a crazy source of damage. And the next one is Total Carnage, which allows your bleeds to critically hit, and when they critically hit, man, the fight is just over. There is an insane amount of damage. The critical hit bleeds for me was something about like 5.4k on average, and these can stack up like a crazy amount. So yeah, Total Carnage is just an absolutely ridiculous one, and ideally you want to be running both of these 24/7, because they're going to make the fights go so quickly on characters that you can bleed. the fights are going to be over anywhere between kind of like usually 8 to 20 hits, sometimes a little bit lower than that if you get insanely lucky. But yeah, everything is just going to drop. We're talking like 40 to 60 KPI opponents are just dead like that. Those buffs are so incredibly ridiculous on this mode with how the damage ramps up and the X-Men team synergy. So yeah, I would definitely recommend those as well. So just to kind of go back to our little document here, what do we have to talk about then? So then we've just kind of got like specific boss encounters and also fights where you will need to ideally use additional buffs to make it, you know, substantially easier. So outside of the Spider-Man in the first chapter, there isn't really anybody that is a huge pain in the ass. Like Emma Frost can be a little bit annoying, but again, she's going to go down fairly quickly as well, and you don't really need kind of any additional buffs for her, unless you'd like something for a bit more safety there. Now, when it comes to the first Spider-Man, the studio's stun immune, he has caltrops, enhanced abilities, so you want to make sure that you have the Fight Dirty buff on, which gives your summoned symbiote True Strike, so he can't evade, and also, if you want, this one's a little bit optional. If you have a lot of strands, you might want to go for this. Recoup is going to cause caltrops to heal you as well, so that can be quite beneficial if you are struggling on this, but really, he went down in like 8 hits when I fought him, man, so that one's maybe not needed if you're on a bit of a strands budget, but I'd just go for Fight Dirty and Recoup for a little bit of safety if you want. But anyway, first chapter, very straightforward stuff, and then we move on to the second chapter, which has Vision as the boss, but also has a bit of a noteworthy Electro to potentially consider using some buffs for. So let's go to chapter 1 and part 2, Anti-Venom. Now, jumping into the Electro and Vision quest, you have the Electro as the second enemy you fight, and because this dude is a 6-star, he's so stacked up in terms of the health pool, the damage you take from him is going to be quite a bit, but there are 2 buffs that you can use to heavily mitigate and reduce that. The first one is Unknown Enemy, which provides ability accuracy reduction, so combined with, you know, the extended stun as well, if you have the ability accuracy reduction stun mastery, you're almost not going to take any damage back when he's stunned, but also the Undying boost can be very good for Electro and also has additional use potentially on Vision if you want to use it as a bit of a buffer from the special free, because Vision is essentially going to start almost always for his special free. So if we have a look at the nodes on him, he has, you know, the passive on Vision. He gains like a bar of power at the start of his synthesis and will every 25 seconds, but also is going to start with 2 bars of power. Both his specials are unblockable, so you have to evade them, and also power gain as well. So yeah, Undying is kind of the main thing there, just to have like a bit of a safety at the start of the fight. But aside from that, it's about kind of cleverly managing Vision's power using the cleanse buff as well. So if he ever gets to a special free, all you need to do is hold block, and that's going to drain his power. And this works very immediately, kind of using Cleanse. I didn't use Undying against Vision, I just used Cleansed, and it worked an absolute dream. So if you pop that just before you fight your first Vision, it'll last for both of them, and you can have some pretty straightforward kills there. And that's it for the second quest. Next up, quest number 3, there's no golden symbiote like there is on Epic. There is a Kang, and he is very straightforward. For Kang himself, you don't really need to use anything specific, because he doesn't really have like anything crazy going on. It's just kind of bait out the special one, be aware that he has strike back, but if you have both of the bleed ones, he's going to die so incredibly quickly. Kang was dead in like under 20 hits or something, and I think all 3 of the tries that I fought against him. So yeah, the summoned symbiote man is so incredibly powerful, but I think there is a boost that causes some sort of detriment to armor, but it seems very unnecessary. But if you do have excess ones, maybe you want to use that, but I don't really think it's needed, to be honest. However, 2 kind of noteworthy fights here. We do have a very stacked magic. Now, if you still have Unknown Enemy active from the previous one, because as you know, it's good against Electro, so ideally used it in the last chapter, immediately go for Path A when you enter this one, because then you'll go on the path where there is this really stacked magic, and that can really help to mitigate magic, and if you only attack him when stunned, you're probably not going to see any limbos there, so that's a good way to deal with magic. And the second one is Cable, which you want to make sure that you have the recoup one active for, but just as a bit of a heads up, this path is a bit of a pain in the ass because you do have a lot of bleed immune champions here. You've got Luke Cage, Groot, and also King Groot, so yeah, that one's a bit of a pain. But for Cable, you simply want to use the recoup because again, much like Spider-Man as well, this is whenever you have a debuff, you are going to regenerate 110% of the damage taken, but sometimes this one doesn't use. On Dormammu and also Mega Red, it doesn't appear to work, but those champions aren't going to be present to the final chapter, and we'll talk about how to deal with those in a second. Now, Chapter 4 has a few annoying fights, and I think probably the place to start for a lot of people is the Infinity War Iron Man. Now, I would say for this, you don't really need any other boost, apart from I personally used Fight Dirty to get the True Strike, so that I could completely ignore any auto block effects to make, you know, the final 15% a little bit easier. But aside from that, it's just fight really well, kind of bait out those heavy attacks, get your intervals in then, but he's just a little bit of a pain in the ass. But I used Fight Dirty, and also there are a couple of evade characters after that, because you can run that path and also go for, you know, the start of this one, which has 2 Miles Morales, so that makes that fight a little bit easier as well, although it isn't completely necessary. So that's just something that you potentially could do on that Infinity War Iron Man fight. However, there are definitely 2 fights where you will need to use the recoup one, and the first one is Iceman. 100% you are going to get wrecked by the Cold Snap if you do not have recoup up. That's a mistake I made. It cost me 1 death. I felt like a massive dumbass after it. But if you have recoup up, you're going to gain health from that. It's all going to be a incredibly jolly time. However, after Iceman, one of the platforms that you port to has Abomination. Now, if you are one of those brave people that's running recoup 24/7, this is where it might screw you if you're running Suicide Masteries as well. So ideally, don't be running Suicide Masteries for this Abomination, but the Abomination, because, what is it, Poison gimps the healing from recoup, when these poisons stack up, it's going to be very, very detrimental. So this Abomination, I feel like is causing some of the most problems for people, but you can chuck on recoup, unknown enemy, undying, and also tenacious to have maximum resilience against this Abomination, but I just did it with recoup active, and we had 1% at the end of the fight on our Summon Symbiote. So yeah, be very careful against this Abomination, because it can go wrong very, very quickly, and the poison stacks up very fast on a heavy bleed character, and deals a lot of damage from like this 50k 6-star, so just be aware of that one. But again, you've got a lot of masteries: recoup, unknown enemy, undying, tenacious, and then finally we have the Deadpool, who is really straightforward to deal with. So he's got Masochism and 150% healing and aggression regeneration. I got him down, I believe it was like 2 times with nothing but the standard boost. So double debuffs and also the crit bleed boost. Very, very straightforward fight. But if you do want to make it a little bit easier, if you are struggling, Cauterize as well. If you've got some spare shards, you can chuck that on, and that's going to give you the heal block on the special one. Which is, you know, just going to guarantee that he's not really going to regenerate for much. So that can be very, very useful. But overall, as long as you're prepared for that Iceman and Abomination, it's going to be a fairly straightforward chapter, this one. So not really too much to worry about there. And then we move on to Chapter 5, which is Void. And this one actually is really, really easy to deal with from my experience. This one I just zerged down. However, I guess the only noteworthy thing outside of Void is there are a couple of paths that do have quite a few evade champions. Like if you go left here, and then you go into, what is it, you know, you've got that Spider-Man, that Nightcrawler, the Wasp, and then you could get a run around to the MODOK as well. So if you want to use, like the Fight Dirty buff to make it even easier, you can. Although with the double debuff duration buff, it's not really necessary for any of these characters, because you can just play the tactic of only attacking while stunned, and you can get a lot of hits in while stunned. Again, your stun has double duration. So that's pretty much it. I play smart with a stun if you're on a bit of a, what is it, Strands budget. But for the Void, there is only really one buff that you need, and that's to counter Biohazard, and it's Recoup, man. So the golden rule on Void is do not attack into the block. That's the biggest thing. If you get the poison, you're going to screw yourself, but just attacking in and getting the bleed, every single bleed is going to heal you for 110% of its damage. So basically, you're just going to get a free, insane regeneration as long as you don't attack into the block. So keep that in mind. Rage wasn't really much of an issue when I fought him, and I did it all 4 times. Only went unblockable once right at the end of the final fight. So you can bring in the Purge buff as well, which is the one whenever you use a heavy attack, it removes all buffs, but it's not really necessary. But if you want it for safety, you know, go for it, but really it's just Recoup, and you want to make sure you have Recoup, but I've heard people that have been running Suicide Masteries as well on Void because of the poison and all the bleed, you know, the poison weighing down the healing, they've been getting a little bit wrecked there. So just as a heads up, if you are one of those people running Suicides, you might get a little bit wrecked on Void, but apart from that, pretty easy chapter to deal with. And then finally, we have the Symbiote Supreme, who is so much fun. I really enjoyed this fight, man. He was really, really straightforward. But there is essentially one boost that you need for Symbiote Supreme, and probably this entire chapter as well, and that is Undying, which is, just to kind of recover that one, because I don't think we specifically talked about Undying. It's, for the first 5 seconds of the fight, you are indestructible and unstoppable, so you're immune to death. Symbiote Supreme, he starts with 3 bars of power, so he's immediately going to use his special free. So when the fight starts, you don't parry, you don't do anything at all, you just wait for him to use a special free, you are indestructible for it, and then as soon as he comes out of his special free, you parry, and then you get your hits in, and usually in about 20 hits, if you've got your, you know, base buffs up, which are very important. Again, I do stress that throughout 24/7, you want to have that double debuff duration and also the critical bleeds. He's going to go down in like 20 hits. Very, very straightforward boss. But also, I'd say there are 4 additional noteworthy fights when it comes to this one. So you've got the Domino, and ideally you want to do the Domino and Black Widow paths back to back, just to make them really straightforward. Having Fight Dirty, the one where you can completely ignore the evade, is going to be useful for both of those, just to make sure you don't get wrecked, because we almost got wrecked by a Domino, and we died to some rubbish on Black Widow, but that was mainly not me paying attention on the live stream. But Fight Dirty is just going to, you know, alleviate the chance for you to get wrecked on those evades for champions. They're a little bit more annoying to stun sometimes. And then aside from that, there's only kind of Dormammu and a Mega Red. A Mega Red, we took a little bit of damage on, but not really too much. I tried to use Recoup on that, but it didn't seem to work. And the exact same thing with Dormammu. Degeneration damage, didn't seem to recoup any of it, so I'm not really too sure what was going on there. It seemed a little bit wasted. But if anybody has any suggestions for either one of those fights, but in terms of like the fun and interactive damage, it wasn't too much, and provided that you've had some good runs on that path, then yeah, it shouldn't really be an issue, because Symbiote Supreme, you don't really need any health for at all. It is literally a case of killing him in like, you know, 15-20 hits, but you're going to find that with the majority of the encounters. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, those are all the tips and tricks to smash out Symbiote 100%. If you have any suggestions or additional tips, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If there are any additional questions or anything I've missed, please do let me know. However, my thoughts overall on the Symbiote difficulty, I really liked it. It was very, very straightforward, very easy to do. Again, I went straight in off the cuff, made a load of mistakes, which now, because of this video guide and all the information and strategy that's out there, you don't need to make some foolish errands on this. And for kind of, you know, the hour and a bit that it took me, getting a 5-star featured hero crystal, pretty damn nice, man. And also the rewards of half a tier 2 alpha. So overall, you know, when reading the rewards, I was a little bit underwhelmed. But for how easy and enjoyable this experience was, I actually kind of think they nailed it in terms of the rewards. I think, you know, it was a good experience. It was very fun. Obviously, it would be very nice to see 6-star shards and tier 5 basic, but this took me, you know, about a third of the time that Epic did, and I imagine it's probably going to be a fairly straightforward run on the free-to-play account as well, but we're going to be doing that live tomorrow on the channel. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to check out the Symbiote live stream, full on demand, you want to see me do this, a link to it will be in the comments section and probably the description of this video as well, or just check on the channel. But aside from that, thank you very much for watching. If this guide did help you out, please, if you could do me a massive favor, smash that like button, share it with your alliance, make sure they can all do it easily. easily. Clock that, you know, essentially free or very, very easy to get 5-star featured crystal, providing you know what you're doing. So yeah, not too bad at all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.